edition of How Did I Get Here? Today, my guest is a lovely human being. Her name is Mo Herms. Uh, she's done so many things in the music business. She's been a radio programming director, she's been a record store clerk, she's been a DJ, she's been involved in licensing for film and TV. Uh, just she's done a lot. There's a pretty good chance that if you've there's a pretty good chance that you've heard music at some point in your life because of something she's done. Is that clear? I don't know. I hope it is. But yeah, this was a stupid fun conversation. Uh, a lot of laughs, a lot of interesting stories. There's a moment where Ike Turner comes up, and you'll just have to listen for the Ike Turner bit. Yeah, without further ado, here is Mo.
Should I introduce myself or anything, or do you introduce me? How do you do it?
Uh, Actually, I introduce you in the pre-roll, and
Oh, got it.
and
Okay.
and then I start with the same question that I ask everybody. Uh, what was the musical moment in your younger days where that made you go, "This is my thing. This is like what I want to do with my life. This is my calling card."
I had a feeling you were going to ask something like that. And I was trying to think, I'm like, what song was it that turned on my music nerd brain? Or, what was it that really rolled me into that? And as I thought about it, I kept going back and back into my past and then back into my past. And then I was just like, man, I am not sure because when I was born, I'm the first of three, right? So when I was born, all of that new parent enthusiasm was there. And something that my parents gave me as an infant was a turntable. They gave me one of those like carry around play school turntables or something. And what was at that time the complete Disney catalog. So I still have some of those records. Of course, as I got older, they got passed down, to the other kids. Some got destroyed in the process. I have those records. I don't think any of them still have the booklets in them. Might have a page or two, but I loved listening to those records. I loved listening to my Disney records when I could use that stuff. And then when I was like 6 or 7, I got my first stereo, and it was a full on stereo with like a tape deck and an 8 track, and it had pitch control, and it had like the four vinyl options. It was like 16, 33, 45 and 78. All of those were available on this stereo.
Wait, a 16-inch? When did that?
Uh-huh. There's it's not
Or
inch
16
16.
RPMs?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 16. And I don't know if those are the great big giant records, because that would not have fit on this thing, but I don't know. I was like, I guess there's a 16 option. Had the arm on it. I mean, it was I could plug a microphone into it. So I actually got a microphone when I was older. And I was like 6 or 7 when my parents gave me that. Now, we were not a wealthy family. My dad was a public school teacher. My mom didn't have a job. I'm sure they got this at like Sears or J.C. Penney's, but I had that thing until I moved out of the house when I was 18. And I am super sad that it no longer exists, because it's still probably the best stereo I ever had. So I had that, and I just remember asking for records when I was a little kid. I had like little ABBA records, and I'd go to my grandparents' house. My grandparents in America, in California, they had like old country records like Hank Snow. My dad was into like folk records, and both my parents were deeply into musicals. And my mom was from Colombia, so she was into cumbias, and she taught dance and cumbia to other Colombians. So I'd be the little kid sitting in the corner going like, "Ugh, I hate this song. I'm so sick of this friggin' Colombian music." But it was always around. I always heard it. So I was trying to think like what my first record was. And the first one I remember asking for was the first Sean Cassidy solo album. And I had Sean Cassidy all over my walls. So he was my first crush as well. So my first crush was actor slash singer. And I already knew his mom was Shirley Jones. And I already knew his brother was David Cassidy. But I would sit and listen to this record so much that my younger sister at one point threw open my bedroom door, and she had a block in her hand. She'd been building blocks, and she threw the block at the vinyl, and like bang, she trashed it. But I sat for hours with the needle and I regrooved it so that I could still listen to it.
Mo sent me a recording of that record.
And now we're going to take a listen. So I'd say I did a good job fixing that.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. So that might have been around there. I mean, doing that maybe in my brain, I knew I was just always going to have to be around music no matter what I did. And I started trying to play guitar at that point, but then I broke my leg, and there's nothing to deter you as a kid from musical lessons than having a full length leg cast. So then I stopped. I picked it up again when I was like 15, and then I stopped, and then I picked it up again when I was like 23. And I still have that same guitar, but I never learned to play it. But I deeply appreciated those who did play. And I think my next crush was Rick Springfield. And then my next crush after that was John Taylor. I still have a deep love for all three of those gentlemen to this day. But listening to Duran Duran and loving John Taylor made me kind of force myself to listen for the bass parts. And that also made me listen to all the individual parts. And I became much more discerning about who played what and, their styles. So it was like I don't know what I was training myself for, but I just started listening very intently. And I was singing in the choir this whole time as well. So I kind of acknowledged I can't play stuff, but I really like people who do. So when I was in high school, I started DJing because I wanted to share stuff with other people. Here's stuff I heard that's cool, and here's stuff you like, and it puts people in a good mood and makes people happy, and people like to learn it. And that just sort of just kept rolling from there.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I've had a few people on who have DJ'd when they realize that they're not they don't have the
They don't have
skill.
musical skills.
But
Patience. Sometimes it's patience,
yeah, but
you know.
DJing's such an impressive art in itself. Like,
Well, I don't wiki whack DJ. Those are the real pros. I know how to play one song after another and have it sound nice.
yeah, matching a song, making gauging a mood of a group of people, and like responding to that mood. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're still a musician. You're just you're
Hey, shucks.
uh,
What really takes it to the next level was when I moved up to the Bay Area. I left San Diego and moved up to the Bay Area to start college at UC Berkeley and started working at Calix. And when I got there, the nerd brain just exploded because there was so much. The library there to this day is insane. I DJ'd once a week for 10 years at that station. And I used to love, I would always say, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start this set with the Tito Puente song and end it with Pavement. And you're going to follow me on that trip. And it's not going to be weird. It's going to be natural. You're going to go with me. It's going to be okay. And I never felt like I was forcing anybody to learn anything there. I'm just like, but see, I just heard this, there's a rhythm in this song that actually got used again in this song, which is kind of a different genre. And then you can move it over here and take it to that song. And voila, we've gone 3 different genres in the last 20 minutes. And it made sense, And I think we're entering a time in the music world where genres are meaning less and less. And I'm really glad for that. In the 90s, not so much, but now, I mean, your kid will be an example of this. They can hear Led Zeppelin and the Ramones and Interpol and like, Solange, and it all makes sense to hear all of these things all at the same time, now, which I'm super stoked that that's the way things are working themselves out to be.
Yeah, I kind of love that. I remember like being in high school, there definitely was this sense of you're either, I mean, really, it was very black and white. It was either like rock or hip hop, and you had to
Mhm.
like fit into one of those pockets.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite like memories was trading mixtapes with
Mhm.
someone really into hip hop, and learning that like Nine Inch Nails and Too Short are really the same world.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the day that that guy like heard Closer, he was like, "Oh my God, this song."
Mhm. One of my favorite DJs at Calix, who he only just left recently. He was there for probably like 20 years or something. His name was Jesse Luscious. I don't know if you've heard Jesse. He's just a really amazing human being. I named a cat after him. Um, but when we were at KLX, we had to play three distinct styles or distinct genres within our show. We had a 3-hour show, and we used to say we are determining those distinctions based on your grandma. Can your grandma tell there's three different kinds of music being played here? Then it's different, because a lot of times people, especially this again was the 90s, say you had an electronic DJ in there. Um, they would play three different styles of electronic music, which was still pretty synthy and everything. You could get something that was super upbeat and weird and something super ambient, but it was still very synthy. So we're like, let's throw a guitar in there, let's throw some beats in there. Let's something so that we're educating not only ourselves but people out there. And Jesse would play he would play anything, but his mainstays were punk, country, and hip hop. And people would be like, "Oh, I hate when he plays the country stuff. Oh, I hate when he plays the hip hop stuff. Oh, punk, it's so this." And I'm all, do you not see the thread between the three of those things? I'm like, it's all outlaw music. Like basically everything he's playing is like rebel music. Like all three of the stuff he was doing was at that time. Because again, this is 90s hip hop, and we were blessed to be in Oakland, which was just like such an epicenter for that. And punk, we got Gilman Street right around the corner, and he was on the board at Gilman Street, and then you've got your old country, and you've got those renegades in the country scene. So it was this, that kind of idea I just loved. And like, so you're bringing these three things together that on the surface seem to be very different, but if you just pay some attention, they're not. You can find that similarity in there, and I love that. I love that. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love the whole just people are going through the same thing in different places. Yeah. Uh, so you already dug into Calyx, which I was going to ask you about, but there's something that, and I hope I'm not misremembering this because that will just embarrass the whole thing. But you did bring up John Taylor, who
Oh yeah.
is one of the finest bass players of the New Romantic era.
Uh,
Um,
period. Not just new romantic era. I mean, my little brother took up bass, and whenever we talk about the song Rio, he's like, that's probably like the only top 10 hit that made it top 10 without a guitar solo, but with a bass solo. And I'm like, and what a bass solo it is. Anyway, continue.
it is, but so an old roommate of yours once told me that you had some involvement in the original Duran Duran fan club. Am I totally off base there?
No, I was, well, I mean, I was a member of the Duran Duran fan club when it first started out, but the reason why that continues to come up is because decades later, I was working at Amoeba Records when they first opened up in Hollywood. I left the Bay Area and I was moving down to LA, and I had this music supervisor assistant kind of position lined up, which was awesome. I was so excited. I'm like, okay, I'm moving out of radio and doing something else. People were like, go work at a label, go work at a radio station. And I was like, oh, both of those things don't really allow for much creativity, at least not at that time. Like if you're a radio DJ on commercial radio, they tell you what to say essentially, and they tell you what to play. And I would not have been happy with that. And at labels, you are having to drink the Kool-Aid, on whatever artists are at that label, depending on where you wind up. So I had this cool job, and then sadly 9/11 happened, and my job evaporated within the week, after that, because it was for an advertising agency, and advertising just shifted at that time. So I called up my friends at Amoeba and said, I'm moving to LA. I know you're opening this store. Can I work there? And they were like, sure, we'd love to have you. So I got to work the first year that Amoeba Hollywood was open. And I worked at the info booth, and I'd been there for a few months. And a friend of mine gets on the intercom, Lady Mo, intercom. I pick up, and she goes, John Taylor, used rock, row D. And I dropped the phone and started hyperventilating. Now this is in 2001, and 2002, maybe somewhere around there. And my crush originated in 1983. So, and I always say John Taylor is always going to be my number one, no matter what. I actually started to hyperventilate, and a friend of mine that was working with me was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, John Taylor. And they thought that someone had died. Like I had gotten a phone call with some very bad news. And I'm like, all this stuff. And, so I got my shit together, calmed down, and was able to, I told security, I'm like, listen, John Taylor's out there, but I'm going to go say something to him because I will hate myself if I don't. And they're like, no problem. And I'm like, I won't be obnoxious, I swear. So I walked over, and I had my I don't think we had Amoeba tags. I might have been wearing the t-shirt, something. I walked over, I'm like, hi, I work here. I work at the info booth. Just want to let you know, this is our security guy. Cause we usually would let a celebrity know, here's our security in case anybody bothers you. So I got to do that. I'm like, here's our security person in case, something comes up. If you have any questions about anything here, you want us to look something up, info's right up there. So you can come find us. He's like, oh, thank you so much. That's so nice. And I'm like, and I just have to say, I am a huge, huge fan, not only of the band, but just of you. My brother learned bass playing because I was an admirer of your work. And he's like, oh, that's so kind. Thank you. It was very nice. I went back to info. But he did come and ask a couple questions. And then when he was checking out, which is a different section, he was standing on the end. It turned out the friend he'd come with was having problems with his credit card. So he was stuck down there waiting. And the manager told me, hey, he's stuck down there if you want to go say something to him. I had just happened to have moved apartments like 2 weeks before. And in going through my stuff to throw things away, I came across my Duran Duran fan club card, which had been issued in 1983. So this must have been 2002. So I put it in my wallet as a joke. I just put it in there. So I'm like, oh, if someone asks me for my ID, I'm going to show them my Duran Duran fan club card. And so I pulled it out of my wallet, and I walked over to him and I said, I know you're kind of stuck here, so send me away if this is inappropriate, but I have this. And he just started laughing. I was like, I just wondered if you would sign it. And he's like, absolutely. And so he signed the back, and he said, to Mo, 19 years later, thank you for everything. Love, John. And I was like, yes. It was very sweet. But I actually did get to talk to him a little bit about, that was when the original lineup had gotten back together, and he was like, oh yeah, we've been recording in the studio and we're doing this. And what song did you like from that? And I go, this. He goes, oh, you'll love this song. He was so friendly and so down to earth. And I was just so lucky that he was very nice, and I could walk away from that situation with a smile on my face. And also not having lost it in front of him.
Yeah, man. Just realizing that if you lost in front of him, that could have changed your entire career trajectory at that
point. Totally. It's true, because since then I have met and interviewed all kinds of people of note. I was also brought back to Amoeba. I hadn't been working there for years, but I was brought back to be the artist handler when Paul McCartney played there. So I met Paul McCartney for like 10 seconds, but I did show Olivia Harrison to her place, and Ringo Starr to his place, and Donnie Harrison to their place. It was just kind of like, oh my God, just meeting these people, being able to be professional. And this is where, if you want to watch the show, you can stand over here to watch it. Just little things like that. But
yeah, you were a Beatle wrangler.
I was a Beatle adjacent Wrangler.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Ringo still counts.
Yeah. I mean,
Ringo
Ringo's
was
one of
I
Ringo's
did
one
I
of
did
two.
wrangle I wrangled a Beatle. The other
Mhm.
one I just said hi to.
Yeah, and I'm sad that they didn't give you like a teeny, teeny, tiny lasso.
Oh, that's the cutest. I did have an unobstructed view, so I'll take it.
Right. I may edit the tiny lasso joke out. That
I like it though. That's up
good.
to you. However much work you want to put in.
So I, I'm I'm actually looking at your LinkedIn during this just because
Oh,
I couldn't memorize everything that you've
yeah,
done.
there's lots of stuff.
uh, but so your next the next job on your LinkedIn after your time at Amoeba is licensing coordinator, which I've got to say when I was in high school I thought that's what I want to do. That sounds amazing.
Licensing. Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting, that's for sure. And I was with Warner Chappell Music, which at that time had like Led Zeppelin and the Bee Gees and Burt Bacharach, as well as like Green Day, which this was early 2000s. Um, I was only there for a couple years, but I did meet Ike Turner during that time, which was, and Suge Knight actually, which was kind of
Wow.
weird. But what I was doing on my end was more licensing is more like the music supervisor comes to you and they're like, we want to use this song for this amount of time on this for in this movie, and then we check the permissions and say, okay, we've got to reach out to the artist for this or their management, or that one's good to go. Sometimes they just didn't care, sometimes they totally care. uh, so that was basically, I was like the liaison, between artist management and the artist, or I'm sorry, and the person who wanted to use their work. And I always saw that as and I was never super high up there. My boss was like, she was the queen of that department. And so when I was there, mostly she gave me all the reality shows. So I was doing like the competition shows like American Idol and Nashville Star and all these things. And I was having to, and that was so much work because there were so many songs that they would try to get cleared. They know they can't necessarily use them all. And she did the big stuff, like the big movie stuff and everything. But what I loved about that was I still felt I was in this role of supporting the musician, supporting the artist, which was something I knew I could do from when I realized I wasn't going to be playing guitar or singing or anything like that. um, that the least I could do is, DJ and let someone hear something they might not have heard. Then it was music licensing because we were representing these writers and making sure they get paid for their work, and looking out for them. And I've often thought that that is kind of what the foundation of my career in music is I can't do it, but I can try to help those who can. And this is how I'm going to do it, you know. And that's
Yeah.
pretty much what that licensing thing was. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Ike Turner thing, that was surreal.
Yeah. I do you I really want to
I
know
can talk
both the
about it.
Ike Turner and the Signite story.
The Suge Knight
The,
one was, he was just passing through. So that one was just like, oh, this is Suge. I'm like, oh, hi. Oh, yeah, I know you. He definitely has a presence. Definitely, but he was on his way to talk to someone else. So that was just in passing. And I happened to be sitting there. The Ike Turner one was completely different, though. He was calling to get paid. He was calling because Rocket 88 had been used in a Quentin Tarantino movie, Kill Bill. And he knew it had been licensed and he wanted to get paid, right? So he got me first. I had to pass him on to someone else who did that part of it. But he called direct. and and I was like, well, you really want to talk to this person? And he had some other questions. I'm like, well, you probably should talk to my boss about that. So we were just talking on the phone for a couple of minutes. He was asking some questions. He got used in this movie, Kill Bill. Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's pretty good. That's cool. No, great soundtracks. Quentin Tarantino does great soundtracks. And we got off the phone. And then maybe about 20 minutes later, I get a call from our receptionist who's downstairs. We were like on the fourth floor. The receptionist was at the main lobby. And he goes, Mo, someone is down here to see you. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's Ike Turner. And I was like, what? So evidently Ike Turner had been in the neighborhood when he made this call. And I was like, I don't know what he would want with me. So I went downstairs and came out, and he was standing there with two other guys, one who looked pretty young, and the other one was pretty big. And I came out, and the reception says, "Oh, this is Mo." And Ike Turner says, "There's the lady with the voice." And I was just like, oh no. Because in my Calix days, I had my fair share of stalkers. So I was like, oh dear. And I walked over and said, yeah, did you need anything else? And he's like, no, I just wanted to meet the woman on the other end of that phone line because that voice was something else. And I was like, oh God, okay. And he said, so is this what you've always done? Have you ever thought about doing voice work? And I said, I did radio for a while. He's like, oh, what kind? So he talked about my radio days a little bit. And then he said, have you seen this Kill Bill movie? Have you seen it? I said, no, I know they bury somebody alive and I got a phobia about that. So probably be skipping it. He goes, it's bullshit anyway, because the woman, she can't kick the asses of all them men's. Have you seen that? She cannot kick the asses of all them men's. I was all, well, my understanding, she had a lot of training, so you never know. And he said, I think, he goes, I'm going to leave you with a picture. Which one do you want? And he holds up two photographs of himself that he's going to autograph for me. One is a concert shot where he's sort of like kneeling like this. He's all, oh, no. There's one where it's a still shot. It's a white background and he's kneeling on the ground holding his guitar. And the other one is a concert shot where he's like singing. And I'm like, I'll take the live one. And he's like, I should have known you liked it live. And I was like, okay. And he signs it, and then he crosses out the contact info, and he writes cell or mobile, and then he writes another number down. He goes, this is so you can reach me directly. And I was all, thank you very much. And he's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't go see that Kill Bill movie anyway, because I just don't think it's true. And I'm like, I got to get back upstairs. And I was getting back into the elevator, and I do not know what possessed me, but I did like this karate high kick when I was getting on the elevator, and he was like, whoa, and the receptionist just started laughing. No, and I went back upstairs, and the receptionist calls like 5 minutes later. He's like, I'm so sorry, Mo, I just didn't know how to turn him away, but I think you handled it pretty well. And I was like, I hope so. From what I understand, he was amused, but yeah.
Yeah. And so you were hit on by Ike Turner.
I think so. I think that qualifies as a being hit on kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the crossing out the generic contact, like the contact of probably his publicist or his manager, and giving you the personal cell phone. That's the clincher.
That's sort of what I thought too. So I don't know. I definitely got hit on by Mos Def's dad once. And that was super adorable. He was so cute. I got to say, I was almost tempted because he was such an adorable guy. Very sweet. That was like my job afterwards. I was working for this cell phone company, and it was a company called Amped Mobile. And I got brought in there because we were essentially doing iPhone stuff before iPhone. So we had created radio stations that people could listen to on their phone. They could have this option, and I was curating like 17 different radio stations for this, and we would get exclusive content that people could download, and we'd get people to come in and record live in our studios. And Mos Def wanted to do something with us, and he came in. He was still going by Mos Def at the time. I've forgotten what he's going by at the moment. And he came in with his dad, who was like his business manager. And his dad was awesome. He was so great, and I also loved that they worked together on stuff like that. It was really cool. It was neat to get to meet those guys, honestly. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm happy that's bubbly. Also just a guy who didn't have a whole movie about how abusive he is made about him.
True.
But yeah, so how did you get into licensing? Like, what was I'm actually asking for myself because that's on like the long-term career trajectory. Like,
Still getting licensing?
If I could do something after this pandemic thing is over, like I want to know how to like scream at people to say, "Hey, I can do this."
Well, the licensing side was, I got into that. It's kind of funny because there's so much who you know. I think that's just in work anyway, connections and things like that. And I had in the 90s interned at Virgin Records one summer, and my best friend had just started working at Virgin Records. So he didn't hook me up with the internship. He said, "Here, apply. This is how you apply," and I got it. So I actually lived with him that summer and worked there, and just met those people. And the HR person there, I stayed in touch with some people there. So the HR person there and I became really good friends for a good decade or so. And she became the HR person at Warner Chappell. A girlfriend of mine was looking for work, had done some music stuff, but not much. And I pushed her towards this HR person, and this HR person got her a job working like bottom of the ladder in the licensing area at Warner Chappell. So cut to several years later, that HR person is still there. My friend is now really high up the ladder in licensing, and I'm looking for a job. And they were like, "Hey, somebody left in this position and you have enough knowledge, you should apply for it." So I was able to come in, but I would not have heard about it, if I didn't know those people there. But it's not something I would go back to personally. So it just kind of depends what you're, looking into following. It was definitely interesting. I learned a lot while I was there, but I haven't touched on any work within the licensing realm in quite some time. I mean, the last time I did was I was at Google Play for a minute for about 9 months, helping them with licensing stuff. And that was a lot more of, no, you have to ask permission for this too. No, you really do have to ask permission for that as well. They're like, "Can't we just use this album cover?" No, because there's an artist involved. So it was a lot more about educating them about what they would get sued over if they didn't ask, because it was still kind of like, "But we're Google." And I'm like, "I know, but they have other ways of getting back at you. You don't want Warner Brothers to pull their catalog because you upset them. So, it's worth it to follow this procedure." But that was even that was almost 10 years ago. So I haven't been back in the licensing realm for quite some time. But it was interesting, and you just have to start kind of down on the end of it, because there's a lot to learn when you get in there, a lot of nuances. And I'm sure were I to try to get back into it now, I'd have to learn a lot all over again, because laws change, and I don't know what the protections are in place now. I don't know what's changed. Warner Chappell was the company that owned Happy Birthday. You want to always hear about why restaurants could never perform the song Happy Birthday, because someone owned the license to it, and that's a performance rights issue. And that was my company. That was those assholes that had that. And it was funny because it was like such an old song, the Hill Sisters. And I know a couple years ago that was finally struck down. They're like, "Come on, you can't own this song." And it was just taken away from Warner Chappell. So yeah, I'm not up on all that stuff these days, but there's a lot to learn about it. There are lots of books. There are all kinds of licensing for dummies equivalents out there in the world, so you can research that.
Yeah, well, the library's just reopened, so
There you go.
yeah, man, I keep thinking back to Happy Birthday, and I remember the there's a certain key moment when it became abundantly clear that Happy Birthday was public domain finally, because it was in everything.
Everything. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. It wasn't a super long time ago either.
Mm.
And I was just like, "Oh, they must be so bummed over there at Warner Chappell."
Yeah, even my daughter has an old sing-along book
Mhm.
that has a fake Happy Birthday in it. That's
Mhm.
pretty much the same original song, but the different lyrics are flipped around,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's a key change, and I'm like, this is skirting a line. And if it wasn't for the fact this is some kind of obscure independently produced
Mhm.
book of children's songs,
Yeah.
somebody would have caught this and probably would have sued, because it's also is a book that's 30 years old, 40 years old. It's been passed along and ended up in her possession.
I think sometimes too, it's a pick your battles thing. It's kind of like, should we even bother going after that? And also depending on what kind of staffing you've got. If there's a lot of people working at that company at that time, they can chase it. But if they are already stretched thin, then they're just going to be like, oh my God, it's just a kid's book. Just leave it. You never know.
Yeah, and it's like it's hand stapled, yet still had a price on it.
It's like a zine, basically. Yeah.
It pretty much is. I'm amazed that it's held up all these years.
That's awesome. And actually, speaking of doing the zine thing, I'm wondering if this is one of the things I deleted or not, but I used to write for the East Bay Express. Like I used to do music stuff and write stuff for them too. And we put out, and then me and a then ex-boyfriend, who's still a great friend of mine, we put out a zine that got picked up by the Virgin Megastores when they used to have magazines in there. And we went full glossy for a couple of years. And that was all during the 90s too. So I was co-editor of this, or yeah, I was co-editor of this zine. That was tons of fun. It was nothing but music. Such a great time. And you would love this. I used to do a column that was called Moe's Kitty Reviews. And I would review music with my cat because I had a cat that was very aware of what I was listening to, and she would react to things. So I'd often I'd play something. I'm like, PJ Harvey, cat yowled once, was not a fan, Of course, that was the Rid of Me album. There was lots of yowling going on anyway. But yeah, it was like there would be things, or Moe's Kitty Corner is what it was called, Moe's Kitty Corner. And sometimes, so I got all the Cat Power albums because Cat was in the title, so I had to listen to that. She was
Obviously.
cool. Yeah, she was cool with that. But yeah, it was lots of fun. It was so zany, though, to do something like that.
Yeah. What's beautiful is in this day and age, that feels like something that would end up in a mainstream magazine.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere on Spinning Platters, the closest I've gotten to that is there's a photo, kind of a bit of a photo shoot of my cat Zoe's response to Lulu, the Metallica Lou Reed album. Because I decided to to listen to the whole thing once, front to back, and then just write stream of consciousness while I was listening to it. But that thing is over 2.5 hours long, if memory serves correctly. So it was like there was a point where I was like, why am I doing? And then that's when I decided to just start like taking pictures of the cat. Like,
I love it. That's great.
yeah,
And I think it's also valid.
yeah,
'Cause you were just-
yeah. I did learn also because I couldn't pay close attention the whole time that the Metallica Lou Reed album Lulu and the musical Spring Awakening
Mhm.
are both based on the same characters.
Really?
Yeah, like
Oh my God.
Spring Awakening is based on one book by I can't remember the writer, and Lulu's based on a different book, but they're in a weird way sequels to each other.
Oh, wow. That's wild. I had no idea. I love that. Oh my God. I don't want to have to put myself through that album though. I'm very curious, but
break it up into chunks. You don't need to do as I did and just burn through it all in one night.
Hi, I'm Michelle Varay.
And I'm Kimberly Trung, and we are the host of Crush Fictionally, a podcast all about your favorite fictional characters from movies, TV shows, and more.
Each episode, we pick a theme, curate a list of characters that we love, why we love them, and some fun facts about the people who created them.
So if you've ever felt a true connection with a fictional character,
Tune in to Crush Fictionally on Campfire Media.
or wherever you find your podcast.
There was a point in your career where like everything kind of pushed to content, like you kind of have become like a
Yeah.
writer and a rare person that's like a professional music writer.
I
Uh,
yeah, I got lucky. Well, lucky and not lucky. When I was working for that cell phone company, it went under. And when it went under, because the iPhone came on, basically got announced, and we were like, oh, we can't be Apple, you know? And when that happened, I lost my job. And for the first time in my life, I was just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But I had met this guy who owned a couple of restaurants. He was linked in with a whole restaurant chain. And he's like, will you program music for us? And this was mid 2000s. So we didn't really have Spotify all over the place yet or anything. So I started basically making playlists for restaurants and bars and clubs and things like that. And it was, you know, this is Spanish tapas. A lot of people think I say topless, tapas place. um, so I was doing music strictly with that vibe. I did like the Eiffel Tower restaurant in Las Vegas. I did, you know, places in Chicago. Yeah. So each one had its own mood, its own feel, all that. And I was doing that for a while when I met this person. His name's Gary Stewart. He passed away a couple years ago, but if it wasn't for him, my life would not be what it is now. I met Gary Stewart and we were at a party and I started talking to him about like 60s garage rock bands from New Zealand. He's like, why do you know this? I'm all, I worked at this radio station in the Bay Area, you know, at KLX for 10 years. And we had these conversations. And about a week later, I get a call from a girlfriend of mine who'd thrown the party. She's like, my friend Gary wants to call you. And I was like, she goes, no, he wants to offer you a job. And I was like, oh, okay. And he offered me a job, which was the iTunes Essentials. It was something that iTunes used to have before they started streaming, where you could say you wanted to learn about Dolly Parton. You could see all her albums, but then we had these playlists that you would have to purchase. It was like a compilation, you know, like our version of a best of. But then we do like deep cuts, and that would be like the fan favorites and special culty songs. And then we'd have like a next steps if you wanted to go a little further. And these are songs, maybe they weren't super huge hits, but they might be in your head, or you might want to know this one. And we offered that by genre, by artist, by mood, workouts. And so then suddenly I'm making these playlists and I'm working with them, creating all of this. And it was great. And then they remodeled the store, which I think was around 2011 when they ditched all of that and they were setting up for streaming, right? Getting involved in that. So, you know, there were big shifts. And after that, I kind of became more of, still working in content, which, as you know, I can't talk about a lot of it now because I used to work with this same group of people, started a company, but we are able to work with various content providers, which could be Amazon, could be Apple, could be YouTube, could be all kinds of places. And we work with their teams, work on sort of marketing stuff, content stuff, algorithm development, things like this. So it's still in the, and writing. And there's, as you mentioned, there is still a lot of writing that is involved in a lot of this stuff. We might write bios for some folks. We might, you know, do just various other things. We might write promos for them. One thing I can talk about that I've just been doing, it's been super exciting. I got to flex my interview muscles with musicians, was we are working with Rhino. Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, their second album, Deja Vu, had its 50th anniversary last year. So Rhino's putting out this big box set. And we're working with them on their marketing materials. And one of the things we got to do was they gave us 3 tracks that will be new tracks. It's like a demo version of Our House, an early take on the title track, Deja Vu, and an unreleased track from Stephen Stills that the band did together. And we created storytelling videos with each of these. And in doing that, I got to interview Stephen Stills, Graham Nash, and David Crosby individually. And I will tell you that interviewing David Crosby was very intimidating, but he was very nice, and he twirled his mustache around while we talked, which my husband says means he was flirting with me. But I think he just has a habit of playing with his facial hair like most people do. But they were all very nice, and it was really, really interesting and fascinating to talk to legends like that, you know. So yeah, so we got to do that. I can actually talk about that. So that was definitely creating content. It was really fun. It was a lot of work, and you can see a lot of this stuff on Rhino now. It's up there. I'm like, I can see the fruit of my labors and tell people about it. This is great.
Yeah. So was this before or after the Phoebe Bridgers incident?
It was after, because we actually were looking at doing like a mini documentary or something. We're like, who are some people we can talk to who kind of in this realm? And Phoebe Bridgers' name came up. And then that weekend was her SNL performance and the ensuing Twitter fest afterwards. And I remember like going back into the document and crossing out her name and saying, guess not. And, you know, people were just writing afterward. Yep, guess we know where he lies on this one. He may have been a fan, but isn't anymore, you know. So yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and it would have been great to that would have been excellent content if you just forced them
Oh
together
my
to
God.
talk.
Oh my God. Oh
Yeah,
no, no, no. They,
yeah,
they will all be the first to admit that they've got egos and they, you know, don't like those egos being encroached upon. So
that's
they do have
fair.
to, they do have to be treated a certain way. I assume that they, Neil Young, his camp did his own thing, so I didn't get to talk with him, which I've met him once before, but I was actually okay with that because I know that they are gods in their realm and need to be treated as such. So I was just grateful that they were, you know, they were doing something they had to do for the label, and I was the one talking to them, and I was happy that we had a laugh. You know, we were able to have a good conversation. Stephen Stills made me laugh a lot, a lot. He was very funny. But yeah, I was just glad that it went really well. You know, at this point, I'm like, okay, we'll get some good content for you. You
That
know.
that is awesome. You're not the only person to say to me that Steven Stills is the nicest of those four.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this is when you look at all the stuff that's out there. I mean, I was when when I was told I was going to be talking with David Crosby, I was freaked out because he's just legendarily an asshole and he totally admits it, right? So I was just like, oh my God, I'm just some woman calling him up saying, tell me about your writing methods or whatever. And I have a friend I mentioned to you before we started this. His name is Greg Dooley. He's the frontman of the Afghan Wigs. He's a really good friend of mine. And he too is someone that people are intimidated by because he's also legendarily an asshole. But he's a teddy bear to me. So as soon as I found out this was happening, I called him right away. And I don't call him that often. We usually text. And he picks up and he's like, what's going on? What do you need? And I said, I'm going to have to interview David Crosby. And he's like, rad. And I'm all, no, I'm terrified. And he's like, oh, don't even worry about it. You get along with everybody. It'll be fine. I was like, he goes, you're smart. You know what you're doing. He'll respect that. It'll be fine. And I'm like, good, because you're a dick like him. So you need to tell me like how it works. And he just laughed and he's like, I accept that. Yes, he goes, I just, you know, I expect people to be respectful. I'm all, okay. He's like, you'll be fine. And it was fine. So yeah. He was very kind. I was very, very, very happy about it.
That is beautiful. Yeah, yeah. And again, you didn't bring up Phoebe Bridgers, you didn't bring up Daryl Hannah, so you're probably good.
We were just talking about the song and you know, it was good stuff. And I have my guitar that I mentioned earlier that I haven't played in forever is I'm in a different room where I'm talking to you, but where I talked to him, it was in the room in the background. And he said, well, I see you have a guitar back there, so you understand alternative tunings. And I'm like, yes. So we did have some like music playing nerd, and I knew enough to understand what he was talking about. And actually, that was the kind of content I was looking for. You know, I didn't really want him to tell me any stories about any like backstabbing, whatever that they got into during these sessions. And also during these particular sessions, his longtime girlfriend had been killed in a car crash while they were recording the album, and in Novato, actually, up there in the Bay. While they were recording the album, she was taking their dogs to the vet. So he lost his girlfriend and his two dogs. And so that recording session was really just terrible for him. And, you know, it was not a good time. So I didn't want to talk to him and be like, yeah, so how bad did it suck when you were making this record? But I did want to talk to him about that song and how did you come up with this song and how does it sounds like this, it's that. And he loved that. Yeah, I mean any musician does. You want to talk to a musician and they want to talk about crafting that music and making that music and what it meant to them and all of that. And so I was really glad that that was the kind of stuff that I was there to talk about. Was not who you got into a fight with this week. It was, you know, tell me about this song is pretty trippy. Did you mean for it to be, or was it just the times, you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's funny with a group like CSNY is getting into like the granular technical stuff with them is the less promoted side of them because
Yeah.
everybody knows like they were kind of like known for their drama.
Uh-huh.
Like
Mhm.
like
They were like
everybody.
Uber. Yeah, the Uber fans will say. And in fact, when we released the Steven Stills video, one of the comments I was like, "See, these are the people that this is kind of being marketed to." He was like, "Guitar alert! Notice that David Crosby is playing this guitar and Steven Stills is playing this guitar in the pictures." So the photos we used were from the recording session, right? And they're like, they later swapped guitars because from this point on, you can see in these pictures that David Crosby plays this and Steven Stills plays this. And I was reading that going, oh my God, what a nerd. I'm like, but at the same time, we got some info about this song that had never been released. And oh, I wrote it for this and it was meant about this. And it was just about that song. So, it gives the super nerds, of which I am one, gives the super nerds more trivia to pack into their brain that, makes them happy. So it's fun.
I love when people nerd out like crazy hardcore.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to be respectful of your time. We're actually 3 minutes over from
Yeah, I
the.
know. Like,
Yeah. Do you have like maybe 10 more minutes?
yeah, totally. I was going to say, I don't know how much time you want and what kind of things we should try to get to because I talk a lot. I know.
Yeah, but it's all good. And it's funny because you kind of naturally like segued into 1021 Creative, uh,
Uh-huh.
which is what you're doing now. Uh, so tell me a little bit about 1021 Creative. I mean,
So 1021 Creative, as I mentioned, was started by one of the founders was the guy that I was working with doing the Apple stuff, not the person who's passed away. That person continued working at Apple. We were kind of contracted to them. So he is someone who had worked for Warner Music, had worked at Rhino. Um, had owned an independent record label. So we all kind of had music nerdy backgrounds. So he started this business and I've been working with them in some capacity for 6.5, almost 7 years, I think now. And full time for about 4 years. And 1021 Creative is a boutique, which means we're smallish. Boutique sort of it's tough to say. We always say like we're marketing, but we're more than that because we do marketing stuff with music, but we do content. We create content like this, CSNY stuff. Um, and we also work with algorithms, like trying to help a company get better recommendations or something, maybe serve up something that's more appropriate to the user. Um, Things like that. We like to say that we try to put the human element back into a lot of the mechanical stuff that's come around. Once in the last decade, so much automation has happened. So there's everything's streaming, everything's this. One of the things people love about Spotify playlists that they're not always aware of is that people build those. And there's a difference when a person builds something like that or a person has input into something like that as opposed to when machines are just cranking stuff out. I mean, anyone who listened to Pandora in the early days of Pandora knows this. You might have said, this is the band I like, play me things associated with that. You get these weird re-recorded versions of songs and these strange live things because they didn't have all their music licensed yet. But then they'd be like, well, this is something in the same vein. And they would play a song that's completely out there. No one would associate with the bands that they wanted. It just kind of wind up in there. And you're sort of like, it's like when you find a white sock in your darks and you're all, how'd that get in there?
I will tell you really quick my favorite Pandora moment like that. Um, and I've created a feminist rock station.
Mm.
Only fueled it with like overtly feminist rock bands. And it suggested to me during the height of the popularity of the television program Rock of Love, Poison.
No,
And,
no.
and I'm like,
Please tell me
this.
you added Talk Dirty to me to that.
It may have been Talk Dirty to me, and it might have
Probably
been
was.
just because like I had like Heart and Girls
You,
School and L7 is
I
all
was gonna
part
say,
of
if I had
it.
L7, you probably had, yeah, you might have
Yeah,
got,
and it,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, and
you had
Lita
tough
Ford.
girls on there. So they
Yeah,
thought, He's into rock. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anywho, keep going, but you just
Yeah, no.
reminded me
Actually,
of the
I am glad
worst
that
of
you had
that.
an example because I couldn't think of one and you had one. And that's exactly it. So, it's like a lot of these companies, as they got going, they were sort of like, ooh, yeah, we kind of need to, what's the balance here? How do we figure out? And, we also do work with like video, kind of stuff, say YouTube-esque kind of things. So do movie recommendations, all kinds of content, and it's about a lot of what our company kind of prides itself on is having that human influence in there somewhere. Maybe we've put together what is teaching the AI, so to make that AI feel a bit more non-AI. I used to always say, oh, I'm training robots, and then there's a lot of that to it as well. But we work with not just music. In fact, music is probably only a quarter of what 1021 works with. We do a lot of work with YouTube in various capacities. We're working with books now, audiobooks and books. We're leaning into podcasts because there's just so much digital content, but it tends to mainly be digital content kind of stuff, and also social media stuff. Working on apps and social media. There's so much there, and it's kind of like, how do you curate this stuff so that it's not overwhelming to people? How do you get it to the right person? I myself, though, with all that, 1021 deals with all of that. I'm the music lead there. So I get to still keep on dorking out on music. And, we're looking forward to some really cool stuff coming up in the next year in the music realm, both behind the scenes and also in front. We'll do some more things that we can actually talk about with our friends, and then some other stuff that's more behind the scenes, kind of cleanup work or fine tuning work with companies so that things don't look quite so automated anymore.
Yeah. So you brought up algorithms, um,
Mhm.
and so last week I was on a panel about music curation for Balanced Breakfast,
Mm.
and somebody brought up. Uh, it was do you know Balanced Breakfast at all?
I think I saw you post about it, so I looked
All
into it
right.
a little bit. Mhm.
Yeah. So for the listening audience, uh, go back to season one because the creator no, but it's basically like for a place where musicians get together and have breakfast and talk with each other about how to sell themselves. And
Yep.
somebody flat out said uh, they don't know how to beat the algorithm, and they don't know how to like get themselves heard when everything is being created, everything is
Yeah.
being like pushed by robots.
Yep.
um and like we talked a little bit about how to push that, but I realized I don't know the human side of algorithms and how that works and how you nurture an algorithm to make it feel a little bit more
It's
like.
more algorithms. I mean, my experience anyway is sort of uh, it varies. It varies from company to company, right? Everybody's got their own IT world and everything, and some people believe more in the algorithms. Some companies believe more in the algorithms than others, and those musicians are not wrong. I mean, this is something that it breaks my heart all the time because there's so much music out there, and in this streaming era, it's like we've got such great computers and we can make music at home. We can do stuff anywhere. You can upload it onto YouTube. You can upload it onto Spotify. You can upload it onto Bandcamp and SoundCloud. You can put music all over the place. How does somebody find it? There's so much out there that as a former DJ, and I still, like I did internet DJing still for years too. I get intimidated because there's so much, and I'm like, I'm missing my favorite thing. I don't know where to find it. Me personally, it becomes its own full-time job, is going through all the music sites, the blogs that are now like big old sites. You got your stereo gums of the world and all that. Finding which one is the hip hop one, which one is the electronic one, what do I want to stay up to date on, what kind of stuff am I looking into and curious about. It becomes like a lot of work. So how do you get that out there to someone who's just interested in discovery, but they don't have the time to dig in to all of that? And that's tricky, man. Spotify, I feel like they've done a pretty good job with their humans. who research and make these lists. But still, the listener still has to do some digging to find the right mix playlist for them. In the world of algorithms, gosh, I mean, there are various things from taking test subjects. You've got humans that are out there listening, and then just kind of reacting to surveys saying like, does this recommendation work for you? No. Why? Wrong genre. Does this recommendation work for you? Yes. Why? Because I like this rhythm. It's like sometimes they do it based on the way things sound. Does it have a similar structure? May not be the same genre. Does it have is it lyrically something that appeals to you? Is it musically something that appeals, sonically something that appeals to you? Are you just classic rock all the way, and that's like the only thing that you'll ever listen to is something that would get played in Roadhouse? It's like, is that where it's a Supernatural soundtrack and that's all you want? So yeah, it's tough, and I think it's something that is still evolving, will continue to evolve. And unless you've got, I mean, obviously I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s, right? I was in high school in the 80s because I'm old. And if Sean Cassidy was my first crush, I'm a kid of the 70s, right? And I remember listening to radio, which I think podcasts have taken a lot of the place of radio, in my opinion. If you're listening to radio back then, you knew which DJ you liked because that DJ would always squeeze in that band. You're kind of like, I was lucky in San Diego, we had our new wave station. It wasn't technically a new wave station, but it was the alternative rock station, started in 81. And I remember they would play like the B-52s and Led Zeppelin and like Motley Crue and Duran Duran. These are all lived together. And then you had like X. So all these things lived on the same station together. And because it was just kind of happening. But I could say, oh, I really want to listen to the evening DJ because he plays more Duran Duran. So I'm going to listen to that. Or the morning DJ is awesome because he plays more like British stuff, and I want to hear more of that British stuff. Or this guy plays punk rock. They play the stuff that you're used to hearing. You're still hearing you still get the Cure, and you still get like, what you're expecting to hear. You're Susie and the Banshees, but that guy's always going to squeeze in a little extra this. So you get to know their personalities and the stuff they used to play. And we don't have that anymore. Radio is really deregulated to such an extent that you have to dig around. But if you find podcasts that you like, you can learn from those. And I think that's taken a lot of the place. And you're never going to be able to replace the human element. Never. And we'll see if these algorithms keep trying. I don't know how close they're going to get, but there are all kinds. I've seen all kinds of methodologies behind how can we get it closer to that record store clerk that gives you the next thing that you never knew you were going to love. How do we make that happen? And no one's nailed it. I think Spotify's the closest personally, but I don't know how they do that. They just have a lot of humans working for them.
Yeah, that probably is important.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Super.
So we begin and end I begin and end each podcast with the same question, and they kind of come full circle. And I want to take you back to that moment when you fixed your broken record,
which I still have, by the way. I still have that album.
Wow, it's still playable?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. I mean, it sounds like there's a thin layer of sand on it, but it's definitely playable.
That blows my mind. So if you could say anything about what you've become to little Mo, who wants to murder her sister now. Actually, I can't imagine you wanting to murder your sister, but nonetheless.
I adore my sister, but sometimes she's a brat still to this day. Gosh, what would I say to that little kid? I don't know, because the other thing is that I was never fully conscious of the fact that I was going to work in music my whole life. I actually thought I was going to be a writer. Like a full-time writer. And so I went to school for journalism. And I started mass comm, and music was always like something I just loved, and it was always part of me. But I didn't sit there and say, one day I'm going to be a famous author. I never said that to myself. I'm also really, really lucky that my parents never told me what I was going to be. and not everyone is that lucky. My parents never were like, oh, you write well, so you should be a writer. They didn't even do that. They were like, oh, you wrote something, it's great. But I'm not to brag, but I was a good writer when I was a kid. So I won a cricket magazine contest when I was a kid. So it was like, so I knew that was okay, but they were encouraging of things that I liked. My mom was a dancer. My dad was a teacher. My mom was a ballerina back in the day. So she had some arts, and then she became a professor of Spanish literature. So, we had kind of an arts thing, but they never told me what I was going to be. So it just evolved. It just always made sense. I always was doing music, and I kept doing music, and each job evolved into the next job. And I've been fortunate that each job sort of morphed, and everything I did grew with the way the music industry was changing and growing as well. So when I was a kid, when I was fixing that record, all I wanted was to be able to listen to my Sean Cassidy records whenever I wanted, And so I guess Big Mo would have to go to Little Mo and be like, you can always listen to that Sean Cassidy record. You will always never have any shame about listening to that Sean Cassidy record. And I will tell you, I never have. I have no guilty pleasures. I love everything. And if someone else is like, oh my God, that's garbage, I'm like, to me, it makes me happy. So, so yeah, that's the only thing I can think of, because I never really gave myself career advice, even as I was advancing through my career. And so just kind of rolled with it.
I mean, I wouldn't believe that record still worked.
Well, I'm just that, even then I was a little neat freak, so I took care of my things.
Yeah. It's also exciting to just hear your full little story, because my kid already had a turntable before they were born.
See? Mm-hmm.
And it's right now she's into getting into the records, and like I'm trying to control it so like she can like enjoy the records and like be happy to pick stuff out, but also like not destroy things.
Yeah.
So like there are a handful of like colored 12 inches that I never listened to. But the one thing that she keeps grabbing and will like grab it off the shelf and run around the house with it is that Final Perfect Pussy record. And I'm like,
wow.
this
I had a memory while you were saying that the record that sticks in my mind as being the Disney record that I still have and still listen to a lot and listened to a lot then was the Enchanted Tiki Room album, which I'm sure makes you laugh because you know that I love tropical drinks and tiki culture and Polynesian culture in the islands. So I guess maybe that started in me way back when.
Yeah. When I picture you have a flower in your hair.
Yeah.
Like that's like the default Mo image.
I generally do. And actually, I'm going to pull my table display right here is a mug from Trader Vic's filled with fake tropical flowers.
Nice.
Always evident, always around. But yeah, I think when I was young, that was probably the one that I put on the most was the Enchanted Tiki Room. I only say that because I still have that record. I don't remember a time when I was not listening to that record. I even played that record on KALX. When I was at one point, I did a special for my family. It was my dad's birthday, and I decided to do a radio show where I pulled in music from members of my family, and I opened it with the song from the Enchanted Tiki Room, and then I went into a cumbia after that. And it worked. It was actually a great segue.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, of all of like the classic Disney like records, the Enchanted Tiki Room is the thing that you might most be able to just like pop on in like in a room full of adults, and most of the time they'll think you put on just some like really crazy 60s lounge record, which I guess it is a crazy 60s lounge record.
Yeah. I think the record I remember stealing of my mom's, and this would have been again mid 70s, was the soundtrack to the Broadway musical Chorus Line. And the reason I did that was because they swore a lot on that record. And I went to Catholic school. But there was a song my sister and I, now let's see, I was probably like 7, so my sister would have been about 5. We used to sit in my bedroom and listen to it, and we'd sing tits and ass, orchestra and balcony. We were just little kids singing that record.
Oh man, when I was a kid and that movie came out, before that song came on, my parents would stop and fast forward.
That was our favorite song on the whole record because it's a jaunty number. It's not just
Mm.
the swearing.
Yeah, it's jaunty and swearing.
All the best things, but we had no perfect pussy to choose from at that time. Really wasn't anything that rowdy, you know. But I did have my dad's cousin was really into Pink Floyd, so I remember being young and she'd be listening to like Pink Floyd all the time. She was a total stoner, you know, and we'd go in the back, all the young the little cousins. We were all like at single digit age. We'd go to her place. She lived behind our great grandma's place. We'd go back there and we'd just listen to Pink Floyd with her. So, you know, there was that. And
That
AC/DC.
that still is lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, whole entire chat, and we never once brought up Mo's podcast, Music and Booze with Mo, which is out in all of the places that you find podcasts. Uh, Thanks, Mo, again for coming on the show. Thank you for listening and making it all the way to the end. Uh, Tune in next time, or be excited when your podcast utility, I don't know the word for it, uh, tells you that there's a new episode. That, because yeah, I want you to listen to it, and I want you to keep listening, keep listening, keep listening, keep listening. Blah. It's been one hell of a month. Talk to you soon.